person that we have coming up is Debi Jackson. Now, if you're anything like me, there's probably people in your life that you kind of hold to some high regard, and Debi Jackson is one of those people that I would probably think of that way. When I first learned about her, which is probably how many of you probably learned about her as well, she did a speech where she was talking about her transgender daughter and essentially the things that she had learned through that process. Since then, she has become an advocate for LGBT. She's currently the president of PFLAG, and she's kind of done a lot of things to make sure that people are aware of the issues that are out there. Of course, with that comes a whole bunch of limelight and a whole bunch of internet exposure as well. So Debi is going to be coming up, and she's going to be talking about how to deal with criticism. Now, because I consider her royalty, I wish I had a crown so that I could coronate her. But since I don't, instead, what we're going to do is we're going to applaud to bring her up. So everybody, please help me in bringing up Debi Jackson.
Last time I was here, I had to hold the microphone like this, and then I couldn't gesture, and it was kind of crazy. So this time they gave me my Ricky Martin rock star headpiece, which I absolutely love, because I like to say I'm just a normal mom who tells stories, but I really do feel like a rock star in this. It's kind of cool. So again, thank you for having me out today. A lot of people come up and recognize me, and they know me from being online, and that's a really bizarre, uncomfortable place to find yourself when you really are just an ordinary person going about your day, living your life. And because of that notoriety came, if you don't know the story, because I gave a speech about a year ago, and it was posted online, and from there it was picked up by some pretty major LGBT outlets, and it's now been viewed several 100,000 times. So my husband likes to tease me about being famous, but I'm really just famous in a very tiny percentage of the world, which is the LGBT community. But my story gets shared a lot by people online, local news, or places like The Advocate, Yahoo Parenting. Last week, a story came out in Parents Magazine online, and it will be in bookstores in a few days. So that's going to be another outlet for people to hear about us. And that just means there's going to be another influx of hate mail. And that's something that I knew, telling a controversial story, having a transgender child, that we would get quite a bit of judgment and criticism. But I didn't realize how nasty and vicious people can actually be. And that's been one of the more surprising aspects of the journey that we've been on for the last year. So I made a joke in the middle of June on Facebook, and I have a couple of my Facebook friends in the room, so they probably remember this, that I received a really nasty personal message on Facebook where the person said that I should be stoned to death. And if only we had those laws so that I could be stoned to death. And my joke was, well, since we don't have the laws where that's my punishment, I guess this isn't an official death request or death threat. And that means that so far in the month of June, I have had 0 death threats. And that was like a small victory. I will say it was kind of nice, because for LGBT month, Pride month of June, I did receive 0 death threats. July came, and I had to start my tally over because I got a couple of nasty messages, but for the month of June, there were none, and that was really exciting. But in getting a lot of these messages, it's not just the personal messages. I mean, the ones that come directly to you, you assume people are going to feel free to say whatever they want because they don't think anyone else in the world is going to see those. But as we all know, on social media, people feel free to give you their opinions, and they might phrase it as advice or, just caring and concern. You can't post anything on Facebook without someone deciding that they have to tell you how wrong you are, or how stupid you are, or that you're going to be judged and you're a criminal and everything. We see stories that happen in the news all the time. And they tend to be controversial, and then they blow up, and thousands of people will comment, millions of people sometimes. So we had the video recently on the news of the mom who, or was the cafe owner who was yelling at the toddler because the toddler was not being quiet in her restaurant. And everyone was saying, yeah, we love it because we can't stand to have our meals interrupted by screaming 2-year-olds either. And all of these people heard one side of the story in a 3-minute news segment, and they decided that they knew exactly what had happened, and everyone was in judgment of the parents. And then a week later, the mom replied. She said, wait a minute, we didn't know how long that wait was going to be. They never came over and they talked to us. We didn't go outside because it was raining and that would have made it worse for her. We thought our food was going to come. We didn't know service was going to be slow. So then all of a sudden people were responding, yeah, we support the mom. That was just a crazy business owner and how dare she. And she needs to update her policies and she needs anger management classes and everything. So the problem that we have with things happening online is that people take a 2-minute section of your life and they decide that they know absolutely everything about you. They know your childhood, they know all of your personal beliefs, they know all of your faults, they know any strengths that you might have, although most of the time online people don't seem to think you have any strengths. It's all just, we're all just faulty 100% of the time. And because of that, they feel free to put out any sort of message to you for all the world to see. The messages that come to us are that we are child abusers and that we should have child protective services called on us, we should have our children taken away, we should be thrown into jail, that we are crazy, that we are narcissistic, that the only reason that we are talking about our child is because we want to be famous, when actually it's just because we want other people to understand that this could happen to you, and we want other families to feel supported, because for years we didn't know anyone like us existed and we felt completely alone. We don't want other people to feel alone. We do get pushback sometimes from within the LGBT community, which was really surprising to me. But there are actually transphobic people in the LGBT community who think that we had a gay son and we must be homophobic, so therefore turned our gay son into a girl just to make our lives easier. Let me tell you, just in case anyone ever says that to you, it's not easier this way. But in getting all of this criticism hurled at us, I was taking a lot of it personally for a really long time. And I know a lot of the other parents who are online in the support groups will read these comments too, and then they'll send me the messages and they'll say, I'm crying for you, I'm hurting for you right now. I don't know how you take this because it hurts me so much to see what people are saying about you. And I'm naturally a very introspective person. I'm always thinking, how did I behave in this situation? Was it the best I could be? You know, I'm one of those people who gets agitated in a situation and not able to come up with anything clever to say, and then I leave, and then 10 minutes later it hits me. I was like, oh, that would have been the perfect response. I could have put that person in their place, and I would have felt better, and I would have stood up for myself, and everything would have been great. And then for the next 3 days, that's all that I think about all the time. I can't even sleep because all of these scenarios are going through my head over and over again. And then the same thing happens 2 months later, and I freeze again. I totally forget all of that great stuff, the material that I had on reserve, and I'm not able to respond. But online, you can. You can take a minute. You can immediately type something out, and you can respond in anger, or you can call the person a name back. And that tends to be what I see happen all the time. Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram, places like that, where you would think people have to slow down before they type. They type, they hit send. And a lot of times, you know, that little edit button, you can see edited comments. I like to go and see what people edited on Facebook, because you could see how after some people came back and said, you know, you're being kind of a jerk or whatever, that they went and tried to edit their history and make it look like they really weren't so rude, but they were. So when I get a lot of this negativity aimed at me, I was internalizing it for a long time, and it was all I could think about. I had a lot of, not necessarily self-doubt, because we still had our child in front of us who was happy and thriving, and I knew that we did the right thing, but I would start to think to myself, maybe I am being a little bit too public. Maybe people are seeing that it's more me rather than me telling her story and our family's story, and maybe I need to rethink my delivery, or I need to rethink where I go and talk, and I need to rephrase everything. And I started to almost doubt my own sincerity. And that's a dangerous place to be in, because you really have to know who you are and what your purpose is when you put yourself out there. I also had a lot of time to grow from it, just from a messaging standpoint, which is really good when you're doing advocacy work, because people would come up with new arguments all the time, and I would have to figure out succinct, direct ways to reply to them and try to keep it from being personal. What I have discovered, again, in a lot of the introspective moments, thinking, why are these complete strangers attacking me with such viciousness? What is going on that makes them sit there in front of their computers or holding their phones and decide that it's worth their time to stop and actually send this message to me? What is happening with them? What are they going through that makes them think that this has any relevance in their lives and that they should take time out of their day to send this message to me, particularly when they want to continue arguing. If you reply back, and then it can go on and on and on for hours. So what I've come to realize is that judgment from one person about your life isn't about looking for compassion. It's not about connecting with you on any level of humanity. It's about their ego. It's about them having a need to make you wrong so that they feel better about themselves. It's them finding fault with you so that they can discover or try to claim that they are right. So there's a need for some people to be right. And they may not have that need fulfilled in any other part of their lives. And so what they're going to do is go online and find someone that they can just start talking about. And a lot of times I don't think they actually expect you to respond. They just want to say something and go away and feel really good. You do get the occasional troll who really tries to bait you, and they want you to lash back, and that way they can use it against you. And you have to be very careful, because if you give in to that and you respond with their hate, or respond to their hate with hate, or to their negativity with more negativity, they're just going to say, see, I told you. I knew what kind of person you are. So instead, I've had to really work on becoming a more patient and tolerant person in order to respond with kindness. And you would think that's kind of ironic because, I mean, having a transgender child, I'm out there talking about tolerance all the time. This is what we want. We want tolerance and acceptance in our lives, and yet I'm still having to practice intense amounts of tolerance to be able to deal with all of the hate that's directed at us. The emotions that we feel before we respond are going to be reflected in what we say and in how people read what we say. A lot of times, when I type a response, I type it and then I walk away for a little bit. I mean, this is all advice that we've heard, but I have realized that the first thing that I want to say to someone is generally not the right thing to say. And that gives me time to process through the emotions. If I can look at that person with more of a thankful spirit, thank you for criticizing me, thank you for writing to me, I would like to ask you a question. It kind of puts them on the defensive. And people aren't normally expecting you to say thank you for them giving you a really negative or a hateful comment. But that's one way that I've learned to diffuse the criticism. So someone might say, you're a child abuser, it's so obvious, I'm going to call Child Protective Services and I hope they show up at your door. I will write back and say, thank you very much. You know, I do happen to know people who work there, and I happen to know the police officers, and they're our friends. So when you call them. I know it's not going to go anywhere, but thank you for telling me you think it's that bad, because that means I'm doing something right. I'm shaking up the way you think, and I'm scaring you, and that's exactly what I want to have happen. I want you to have to stop and think about it. Another way that I respond to people is to just ask them what's happening in their lives. I had someone who wrote to me and said, you know, I'm not against you, I'm not against your family, I'm not even against your kid, because I don't get it, but whatever, I guess I don't have to, but I just really don't think you should be out here telling your story. I don't want all of this shoved in my face. And I responded with the question of what's being, you know, shoved in your face. You didn't have to click the story to read it. It was your choice. Okay, well, you did read it, so now you learned some information, and it made you feel uncomfortable, because in this article it talked about the science behind being transgender, and you don't really like that because you want it to all be about religion. Well, I'm sorry, but hey, sometimes religion gets it wrong, and we have science now that can show us the truth. So what else is your problem? And you start engaging and asking questions. And sometimes you can get to the heart of an issue that person's facing. And in this particular case, this guy was 18 or 19 years old, and he was in the military. And he came back and said, well, you know, they passed that whole, they got rid of the whole don't ask, don't tell thing, and now I know that there's like a gay guy that's in my barracks with me, and it's making me really uncomfortable because I think he's looking at me. He was like, okay, but what does that have to do with me having a transgender child? And he's like, well, you know, because it's all about sex, and it's the people who are looking at each other, and like your kid is going to grow up and be one of these people. I was like, do I need to go back to the basics and understand sex to you? Do I need to understand gender or explain sex and gender and all of that? And I did, and I took the time, and we actually had a really good conversation in private for about 2 days, just back and forth. And in the end, he came around, and he was being really supportive. And he was like, wow, you've changed my mind about a lot of things. And it was simply because I engaged with him. And it's not to say that anytime someone directs judgment at you that they're going to be receptive. The block button on Facebook and Twitter is my best friend. I love that, because there are some people who have just decided that they have to be right, and they are going to attack and attack and attack, and no matter what you say, no matter how much logic, no matter how much fact you put in front of them, they are not going to hear anything because they know everything. But in this process, you can't get angry at those people either. You really just need to forgive them. Okay, sir, you have issues. Go on about your day. Thank you. Block. I'm going to go on with my life. Forgive them and don't hold on to it. A lot of times I don't even share these comments that come with the publicity with my husband, because he internalizes, and then he gets angry, and then he stomps around the house for the next couple of hours, and he's just, I can't believe they said this, and doesn't that make you so mad? And he takes it really personally, and he doesn't let it go. And it could just be because he only hears a few select stories once in a while, and I hear it all the time, so I've gotten used to it. I just let it go. Okay, there's nothing original here. You know, Child Protective Services, yep, abuser, yep, getting stoned. Okay, move on. If you could come up with an original insult to me, maybe I would want to engage you, but when it's the same old, I can't be bothered. But again, being an introspective person, I'm trying to figure out how can I be a better person because of all the criticism that gets lobbed against me. And I've realized when I forgive the other person, I'm not sitting in judgment of them. I'm not judging them for being ignorant. I'm not judging them for being stuck with an outdated belief. I'm not even judging them for being so childish and petty that they call names instead of trying to engage in an actual conversation. And if I can not have any kind of bitterness against them, I can respond in kindness. I can say, thank you, I'm sorry for whatever put you in a bad mood today, that you thought you would feel better doing this to me. Have a good day. And, you know, with the people who come at me with Bible verses, like, God bless you, right back at you. Appreciate it. The other people who aren't interested and they're just trying to say that we're freaks of nature and that sort of thing, or child abusers, I just, again, say thank you, I hope you have a good day, because I'm going to have a good day. You are not going to ruin my day. And that's what people want. They want that response. And if you just shut them down and say no, I'm not going to give you that power over me, it takes away a lot of their argument. Because a lot of what it is power. They just want power over you. They feel inadequate in some respects, and they are out there trying to, give themselves a sense of greatness by being able to be abusive to someone else. But if you are one of those people who takes a lot of this internally, it can be really difficult to hear criticism over and over and over again. And again, we have special circumstance with a trans child, but I have atheist friends who are constantly, I see on their Facebook pages, they are constantly being attacked. And she is always having to defend herself. And she gets really tired about it. We have conversations about this all the time. How everyone's saying Christianity's under attack, and yet she says the stuff that's directed at me, for being able to say I approach life through logic and science, is outrageous, because they feel that they have a right to say absolutely anything and be vile and emotional in doing so. And that's why I wanted to come talk to you today, because I get it. I hear and I see what's directed at her as well. And she can internalize that sometimes too and become more critical of herself. But if we can learn, this is my big takeaway, if I can learn, if she can learn not to approach the other person with anger and bitterness, it makes her be kinder to herself. I think I have become a better parent, and my husband can tell you if I've become a better spouse, that might be questionable, but I've become a better parent in learning to respond to hateful people online, because it's given me the opportunity to step back from those emotions and say, there's something different going on here. So when I have a child who's having a meltdown and everything, I'm more patient. I'm able to say, okay, what is it about what's happening here that's causing you distress? How can I help you fix it? And taking that parenting role, even online, if someone comes at you with hate, think of them like if you are their parent. And even if your child misbehaves in front of you and they drive you crazy and you can't stand how they're behaving, you're still thankful that they are in your life. You're thankful that you have them, and you remember all of the amazing, wonderful things about them. So take that approach and put it towards all of the critics that you have out there in the world. When someone says something to you, be thankful that they have given you an opportunity to look at yourself and learn something about yourself, but also be thankful that you don't have to deal with them. You can walk away if you want, and you can also help open their eyes to something that's happening in their lives. When we engage with another person without judging them and reacting immediately with emotion, we are able to go back and have a kinder response. And there are, a lot of people who are going to be critical of themselves, and if you learn to be more patient with other people, you're going to be more patient with yourselves. We're all going to make those mistakes. I am going to react harshly to my husband at the end of the day, because I've been dealing with all these other jerks online all day, and they've gotten all my patience, and then he comes home, and I'm like, done, and he gets the brunt of it. But I'm able to forgive myself for that because I understand where it came from. Hopefully he's listening and he's going to understand where it's coming from, and he'll forgive me for it too. But again, you're able to be less judgmental of yourself, and I think that's what a lot of us need as we go through the day. We do carry criticism internally. You remember the bad things that are said to you more than you remember the good things. And it can be one of those things that becomes really painful and makes it hard to get through your day. But again, be thankful. Be thankful. Respond with compassion. That's the theme that you have here, and I absolutely love that. The people who are critics of you are not thinking in terms of compassion, but that doesn't mean that you can't. The last thing is, you might be sitting there saying, that's great, but you've had a year to practice this. How in the world? Because, man, I get that comment and I get angry. What do I do? There's no step-by-step guide to it. it really is that you just have to be open to that idea. You have to recognize whether it's, you know, pinching yourself or taking that deep breath or understanding anytime I do get criticism at me, I'm gonna walk away. I mean, we're trying to teach that to our children too. When they get mad, tell the person, I need to get control of my emotions. I will come back in about 10 seconds and walk away. And they will respect that more than suddenly everyone yelling at each other, because that gets you nowhere. So personally, I have grown. I treat people with more kindness. When I'm out there telling people, I just want kindness, I just want acceptance and tolerance, I've realized that, you know, you don't have to tolerate hate, and you don't have to tolerate, you know, anything that is blatantly discriminatory, or you don't have to tolerate someone trying to bring you down personally. But you can practice that kindness and that tolerance that you want back in how you respond, in taking that moment, and again, feeling thankful for them, that they are allowing you to learn something about yourself. And I will stop talking because you're flashing fingers at me, so. Anyway.
Sure. Anybody have any questions?
Some of us, when we get criticism, as far as say being atheist, whatnot, have already gotten way past the point where it doesn't even bother us. We actually entertain it and relish it, have fun with it. Do you think you'll ever get to that point?
I have actually had fun with a couple of people online, and you know, it's mostly the people who come back spouting the same you know, Bible verses at me that I've heard over and over again. Because if they wanted to get into a biblical war, I will do it, and I will throw other things back at them and tell them how hypocritical they are. But yes, there are people that sometimes they just think that they are convinced. If they tell me they're praying for me, or if they tell me that I need to go back and find God, or if they want to tell me that you know, I'm a sinner and I need to fix things right now, and I'm running out of time, I have responded a few times and said, you know, I've heard that 13,742 times already, but I think this one is the one that's making the difference. 13,473 was the magic number. You're the winner. Thank you. If I had a grand prize check to give to you, winner, winner, I would do it. Because, you know, again, there's nothing original. There's nothing original. And I've joked with people too about, okay, yep, heard that criticism. I'm not going to reply. Do you have anything else? And then they'll come up with some other remark. And I'll say, yep, I've heard that one too. I'll copy and paste my reply because I've done it so many times. I'm not going to waste my time typing it. If you want the answer, I'll give it to you. Or do you have anything else? And then they'll try something else. Wow. You know, again, why don't you go think about it for 24 hours and then come back and come up with something new, because I've heard it. And I have fun with people a little bit that way.
Any other questions?
Can you hear me? Okay. I imagine when you receive a lot of death threats, there's probably like the average garden variety kind. But have you gotten any that really stood out and said, this is actual danger here, I need to be concerned about?
No. I mean, we received the garden variety of "you should die, I would like to help you," and then there are the ones where people actually, you know, go into graphic detail of how they want to do you in. It can get pretty graphic. But I have not ever felt like those are going to be an imminent threat to us, because if they're gonna say that much stuff online where I can click a button and report them and everything else, they're pretty dumb, and I don't think they're cowardly. They're cowardly. They think the words are gonna get enough of a reaction. They're looking for a sense of power, not from coming and actually doing something to you. They just want that reaction because they know the words are gonna sting. And that's why I had to learn really quickly. It's just words. And if, you know, I have started to get recognized a few times, and when people walk up to me in Trader Joe's or somewhere like that, and they're like, I know who you are. Like, you do? And I just kind of have to wait. And then they'll say, yeah, I heard it was great, and I can suddenly breathe again. But, you know, I skip a couple of heartbeats, and I have a hard time breathing at first, because you just don't know. You don't know if people are going to, maybe that person was nice, but maybe there was another person in there who recognized you, and they're not saying anything because they want to follow you to your car, you know, and find your license plate or follow you home or something. And I do live with a sense of paranoia right now, but it's not so much because of anything that people say online. It really is just because of the potential of being recognized here in town.
Any other questions? I have a question. So you're obviously talking about criticism, but what about support? So how much support do you get?
Oh, that's part of what makes the criticism easy. I get thousands of messages of support. Literally thousands. I haven't deleted any of them because it's amazing. I've heard from people 6 continents. So far, Antarctica is holding out on me, but someone down there is going to be supportive when they see the news. But otherwise, yeah, I get supportive messages from places that you wouldn't think, from Russia, from China, from Pakistan, from Brazil, where there's so much violence against the trans community and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
Perfect, and we have time for one more.
Have any of the experiences you've had changed how you want to structure your voice in writing? Do you ever find yourself preemptively dealing with the trolls and the negativity?
Yeah, I do, and that's part of what my speech was. It stemmed from a newspaper article they did a year and a half ago, and there were points that I really wanted the reporter to make, and they were left out because of space. So that was my response. Well, here are some more myths, and here's our answer to those. And since then, I have had more of those come up, and a lot of times it is preemptive. And when I talk, when I give interviews, when I go to speak to someone, the first part normally is trying to lay out a defense for all of those things. Instead of just saying, this is what we saw with our child, it's, no, we weren't homophobic, and no, we weren't trying to enforce gender stereotypical roles. We were saying it's perfectly fine to be a boy who likes girl things, you know, and then, no, Google wasn't where I got the answer. I just typed in a search at Google, and it pointed to me to this as an issue. So then we went and talked to the experts about it. Google did not diagnose. The doctors diagnosed. So I have really learned how to clarify the points and to get at least one defensive sentence in there at the beginning. But again, particularly online, people read headlines. And you can tell from the comments that people were too lazy to read, and they just went with the headlines. And a lot of times on that, my reply is, wow, you don't do much reading, do you? Paragraph 6, just to let you know. Click the link, count down, paragraph 6 answers that, rather than being repetitive. And then that kind of shuts them down too, because it points out to them and everyone else who go, haha, you're dumb, got called out. So then I don't have to be the one to do it. I can respond with kindness, and then everyone else piles on them.
Perfect, thank you so much.